And we're live on the YouTubes. Super excited to introduce my next guest. Quite a diva. He kind of raked me over the coals for this introduction, so I'll have to make sure I get this right. He got his master's at BS University in deceitful ways of convincing people to believe in a worldview. He got his PhD in deception and arguments and ad hominem attacks and arguments from ignorance to get people to believe the Christian worldview. John Dunphy, thank you for being here, sir.
Yeah, and thank you for getting everything accurate about me. I definitely got a master's, even though I'm only 21, but, you know.
Well, yeah, I thought in the spirit of, you do what I try to do, but you do it much better. You're actually funny when you do your videos. So I thought in that spirit I might do a little comedic introduction, but in all seriousness...
That was funny.
Well, good. But in all seriousness, on the off chance there's people watching who don't know you, or maybe they'll watch later, what should we know about Mr. John Dunphy, other than he's related to the family on Modern Family?
I actually don't get that reference.
Oh, well, hopefully somebody out there will. There's a family on a TV show called Modern Family, and the last name is Dunphy.
Oh, I'm gonna have to make a meme out of that for my own family, but because Modern Family would not describe my family too well. A lab experiment might, but anyway. Oh, geez, what to know about me? I'm an apologist, so that makes me deceitful by definition. I mean, very honest by definition. No, I basically was a young Christian who, around 16 or so, sophomore year of high school, probably more like the end of freshman year, I came across Objections to Christianity and so on from YouTube channels like TJ Kurd, Jacqueline Glenn, Cult of Morons, aka Cult of Dusty. And I struggled with these objections they brought up and the lies and strawmans I now know that they purport. And I came across apologetics, and basically I studied for about 2 or 3 years. But most of it was, my first year was heavily focused on like Kent Hovind stuff. So that's not too impressive to my resume of apologetics. But I no offense to Kent Hovind, or maybe there is, but that's not too relevant. Anyway, I came across Frank Turek, William Lane Craig, Ravi Zacharias. I listened to them throughout my last 2 years of high school. And then when I graduated, I decided to go to the Cross-Examined Instructor Academy 2017. Got to meet Frank Turek, J. Warren Wallace, and a bunch of other great apologists. I had my YouTube channel started before then, but I only had like 20 subscribers. Actually, probably less than that, because when I started freshman year, I only had 20. Now I have 1,500, about 1,522, I think. And I've come a decent long way since my trip to Dallas, Texas. Oh, I started Christian Truth or Apologetics after my trip to Texas. So that's sort of a summary. I basically believe Christian truth needs to be spread through apologetics, and the next evangelism is apologetics.
Nice. So you were, let me get this straight. You were already a Christian before you learned apologetics?
I sort of like a cultural Christian, I guess. I had like doubts that sort of leaned me towards agnosticism a little bit.
I see. So you were indoctrinated as a child, and it was all confirmation bias. Good. Just wanted to write that down to be sure.
Exactly.
No. So I guess who would you say are? Well, I guess let's start backwards. Maybe who are more the atheists you like to listen to?
Like now listen to, or the ones I listened to when I was like going through some doubts?
Both. Yeah. Start at the beginning.
Which one do you want me to start with first?
Oh, I don't know. If you want, like, the guys who like maybe got you doubting, and then because you were saying, well, now I see they were just kind of using ad hominems and straw men and stuff, and then maybe after that, who do you think like now are people you listen to who you take more seriously?
Well, after I started getting a little bit into apologetics, I would start to watch Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, and they really had me doubting, sort of, because I would be like, oh man, I don't even know how to deal with that. Then afterwards, I'm to the point where like Graham Opie and other atheist philosophers, they don't give me extreme doubts, but they definitely give me stuff to think about that is way more complex than the previous atheists I mentioned. Atheists I like to listen to would be Graham Hoppe, Paul Draper, other atheist philosophers like that. Cyrus I like. No one likes him, but that's sort of me. I started with him. No, I'm friends with Cyrus. We had an 8-hour conversation one time. That was only meant to be a half hour, but it was still fun. That's sort of a basic summary, I guess. There's a lot more I could go into.
And then who are your favorite apologists to listen to?
None. They're all scammers. No, I used to really like Ravi Zacharias in high school. I'm a William Lane Craig fan.
You used to like Ravi Zacharias in high school?
I mean, I'm not in high school anymore, so.
Okay, fair enough.
Sorry.
This is going super well.
No, you're doing fine. I think. What do I think? Oh, yeah. I saw the Sunday special on Ben Shapiro. I thought he had some really good input. I don't like go to him for scholarly resources as a scholar source, I guess. But like I tell everyone else who asks me this question, just really depends on the topic. But people who popularize apologetics, I like Dr. Craig.
Yeah, that's how I am. Certain people, like, if you ask me who my favorite on the moral argument is, it's Frank Turek. And then certain other issues up.
Not inspiring philosophy. Have you seen his moral argument?
Actually, I watched this years ago. The first time I ever saw, not years ago, my brain it was a long time ago. But I think the first time I saw him was when he was on Cameron's channel, Capturing Christianity, to debate cosmic skeptical morality. And so that was the first time I saw Inspiring Philosophy, and I actually don't remember too. I've been meaning to go back and watch it, because I think when I saw it live, it was live, so I kind of picked up in the middle of it, and so I didn't see the beginning. So it could be that I like his better, but yeah, I have to go back and check it out.
Well, you have to watch his playlist series. I like the idea of there being moral facts, meaning that, if you want to do a certain thing, you ought to do this. So if you don't want to burn your hand on a stove, you should not put your hand on a stove. It's almost common sense. And you can sort of argue moral facts, apply objective moral values and duties. So I think intuition is a good, reliable source. That's sort of like immediate knowledge with moral truths. These are a priori truths that we know. And just like memory, the laws of logic, they're basic axioms we start from. Axiology is the study of the good. And I think that if we're justified in believing our memory is, true from our intuition, and that I'm talking to you right now, or there's actually things around me from my intuition, I can't verify that a priori. That just becomes circular, because I try and prove that there's a microphone in front of me with the microphone. That's just circular. So you have to sort of assume that's just immediate knowledge. So I would say that if we're justifying those things, then why not objective moral values and duties that seem apparent to everyone?
Yeah, though that's one of the things I've been trying to do, is I've been trying to get away from the language of objective morality versus subjective morality, because it kind of muddies the waters. And what it allows the atheists to do is equate. They'll just say morality, and in certain parts of their argument they'll be talking about subjective morality and subjective principles, and then by the end of their argument they're to objective morality. And so I'm not a fan of the way they equate. So the way I like to say it is, either there is a realm of moral facts which are objective by nature, or there isn't. And then you can talk about in descriptive ways about how people behave or why people do certain things in social groups. But in that worldview, their morality is just not a thing.
Oh, yeah, I don't think, morality would be. Well, even, see, Jonathan McClatchy and Blake Yenta, they like to use this one argument. What's the probability of a moral arena on atheism? And by atheism, they probably mean a form of naturalism. I sort of go a similar route. I would say God. I sort of go the precept route. God is the necessary preconditions for morality. Like Rationality Rules and Sam Harris, they try and justify objective morality, but they're all determinists, meaning that any action you take is determined by brain states or genetic and environment, however they want to put it. So there's no blameworthiness or praiseworthiness. While on a libertarian free will perspective, you are the originator of that action, and you could have stopped it or controlled it. And if there's a fact something is wrong to do, but you do it anyway, and you could have done otherwise, you're held accountable. That's how our court systems work. That's at least how they're attempted to work. Some cases they don't work out too well, and the ones that don't, we would call that unjust by the objective standard, of course. And then, how do we have libertarian free will? I would say will is grounded in mind, and I think on atheism, matter gives rise to mind, not mind to matter, that sort of deal. And I think for objective moral values and duties, in the first place, you need God. That's more classical apologetics, of course. Consciousness, to even get consciousness, I don't even think that's possible. It's plausible because property dualism, I guess, is possible, but I would just say it's highly improbable that mind states arise from brain states. Well, I think that I'm a substance dualist along with you, that we are composite body and soul. I'm not a dualist, so I think both are needed for our ontology to be complete. So I sort of agree with Trent that the brain is more than just a tool a little bit, but I would probably rearrange it a different way. So I don't think consciousness is plausible on atheism. So I would say that to even have subjective morality, you need those, at least two things like that. Free will, you need sentient moral agents, basically, and I don't think you can get that on atheism. Or it's plausible, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good point you made earlier about trying to separate things out. Like, and this was a problem the people who were developing AI ran into, which was they were trying to make robots that could see, and it turned out they couldn't see if they didn't have bodies. And the reason is because seeing is the mapping of the world onto action. And so the way you act in the world is so intricately tied into what it is that if you're going to say that values are the way you act or how you ought to act is subjective or it's just this kind of evolutionary beneficial adaptation, well, then so is what we're seeing. So is the objective world. So is the fact that there's a tree in front of me or anything else.
Well, it depends on whether you're a realist or anti-realist. And John Locke is a realist, and he sort of argues that the tree sort of has these particles which we would probably call sight, that embeds its ontology into your mind, sort of. Well, an anti-realist would come along and say, well, and I think a good form of anti-realism would be solipsism, where, well, how do you know you're just not a brain in a vat being stimulated on, or that the world really doesn't have an appearance that was made 5 years ago to look like it had an appearance or whatnot. And I think that anti-realism isn't a good justification for epistemology. I think we can make real claims about things that we see.
Yeah, same. TrueGamer69, and I don't know if you're familiar with it or not. He asked, "What do you guys think of T. Jump's case for objective morals outside of God?"
From what I see, all he says is there could be a law in naturalistic pantheism, even though if he means by naturalistic pantheism, if he means a body of consciousnesses that have existed for like ever, sort of in the Hindu sense, however they want to put it, then it's possible. But if you mean like basically naturalism, then I'll just go with my previous argument. But again, that's just an argument from ignorance. Sure, it's possible, but is it the case? And all he does is just say, well, it's possible, therefore your claim is wrong. Then you ask him the same question, and he'll probably say, I don't know, but neither do you.
Yeah, well, I talked to him about it. He does think that he believes in objective morality. He says you can ground it in a natural law. Now he admits, he says, but it's a natural law we haven't discovered yet. But when we discover it, on his view, it's likely to kind of cohere to, what our basic consensus is on morality. Me and him went back and forth on this, and he did have a good point at one point, because I was saying, well, I don't think you can ground morality outside of personhood, because you don't have moral obligations to things, you only have moral obligations to people. So that's why if we have the standard that's kind of the law, it has to be a person, not some kind of natural thing. And his basic argument was, well, hold on, whatever the natural law is, that's somehow part of our evolution. And I hope I'm not misrepresenting him on this, but and it was something akin to those who behave in accordance with it we consider moral, and those who don't behave in accordance with natural law we consider.
Well, we consider it. We would be the arbiter of what is right and wrong. And it's just like, well,
yeah. Well,
now it's just a matter of opinion, like what ice cream flavor is better, basically.
Yeah. So his opinion is there is something objective about it, which isn't the natural law. And let's forget for a moment the obligatoriness of that, whether or not we'd have any obligations to natural law. Let's just kind of grant that for sake of argument, that maybe there's something that's kind of natural law. And yeah, and you're right. We're the arbiters of who's in accordance with it and not. My point was, how do you know that? Because he said we haven't discovered the natural law yet. I said, well, how do you know that when we discover the natural law, it won't actually be opposed to everything we think is moral? That we discover this natural law and it's actually what was considered moral according to this natural law is actually all these things we consider to be immoral. And his point was, okay, possibly, but it's not likely because of the way we behave, because of what we know about things. And then my rebuttal to that was, but then we're just an accident of history at that point. Because if the Nazis had won World War II, as apologists always kind of use that example, and they had kind of the worldwide view, right, the majority worldwide view was that killing Jews and all these other people was right, well then they're going to discover the natural law, and they're actually going to see, actually it's opposed to all of our views. So you can't actually justify that.
I would agree.
Let me see.
I just don't think it's plausible.
Yeah, so we kind of got wrapped in the moral argument. I do want to ask you what your favorite argument for God is, though.
The cumulative case. I say that every time.
Okay.
I think you asked me this on our on my interview of you, and you said, well, presupposing, or you can't make an exception to the rule or something like that. And
no, it's fair enough. So I'll ask you a follow-up question, which is, within the cumulative case, which one do you like the best or think is the most powerful?
I think the fine-tuning. The objections I've seen are not as well argued against. Like, I think there are better objections to, like, let's say the moral argument that we were just talking about than the fine-tuning argument. Because, like, it seems like the number one argument they use is either the omnipotence thing. Well, it requires external restrictions, which means God can't be omnipotent. But if you grant that, all it follows is the intelligent designer is maximally great or something like that. Maybe there's a logical contradiction, perhaps, in the way how he has to create things. Okay, that's all that follows. Or the multiverse, and that just pushes the question back. Or the lottery analogy. Well, eventually one will win. It's just like, no, things don't have to be that way. It's not set for us to be here. But yet it is set based on the fine-tuning argument. Of course, an intelligent designer, for them, it would be like the naturalist lottery. Well, we just happened to get here. Telling me there's a chance, basically, is what the argument seems to be.
Yeah, so let's explore that one a little bit, because I like that explanation. Like, well, we're here. I call it the fallacy of retrospect, which is you can only make the observation looking back, and then you can only use present circumstances and ideas to justify a past event, which wouldn't work if you didn't have the aftermath to look at to kind of build into your initial predictions. And so Jason Lyle had a good point on this, because somebody was saying, well, we were here, so it must have worked out. And he said, okay,
that just seems to violate the principle of induction. And it's just like, going based off of that, how would they do history?
Yeah. Well, so Jason Lyle's point was, so imagine there's a plane crash, and there's one survivor to the plane crash, and somebody asks him, well, how did you survive? And he said, well, I'm here, aren't I, doing the interview, so I must have survived. That wouldn't explain how he survived. That's just kind of...
That's the observational phenomenon. I think Craig's analogy just puts it to shame, even though there's other ways you could go. So basically, there are 300 snipers or marksmen that are going to execute you. They're all aiming at you. I would say the odds are basically impossible. The only way you could make it not possible is going with solipsism or something like that. But they're all pointing their guns at you. They're trained. They know how to kill you. You're like 10 feet away. They all fire. they all shoot, and somehow you're still alive. Either they had blanks, they missed on purpose, or they somehow missed. It's almost like the fine-tuning argument when you put it. It either had to be that way, it's actually design, or it's chance. And, I think they had blanks or missed on purpose, because it's not going to happen like that.
Yeah. Well, so
see, I forgot the punchline. See, it had to be that way for me to be here, so it just had to be that way. Like, no, it didn't. They spared your life, basically. You're not explaining anything. You're just giving a statement and then repeating it, basically. It's a tautology, basically.
Mm-hmm. Well, so I really like that analogy for a couple of reasons. So okay, one, they missed on purpose, right? And that's the design hypothesis. They missed on purpose to spare your life. The next is physical necessity, right? And so you could say, okay, they had to miss, and the way you could possibly construct that would be to say, well, somebody hours before or the night before or whatever kind of sabotage the weaponry, right? So maybe they did something with the guns so that they wouldn't fire on point, or that they'd fire like 10 feet or 5 feet away from what the snipers thought they were aiming at, right? The problem is that doesn't work for the universe. That's the kind of physical necessity you would need, but that doesn't work because the initial conditions are so fine-tuned that to say somebody built them in, well, number one, you're just back to design. But the number two, you don't have any kind of evolutionary argument for that.
Well, I think the principle of sufficient reason is pretty good to deal with physical necessity, because it's just like, did it have to be this way? I don't think it had to be. Could have been different, especially if it's composite a certain way. Could have been different, basically. The numbers could have been different. And to say it had to be that way, you have to somehow logically prove fatalism, which I don't think is plausible.
And here's the thing. I think it's actually gracious, because you always hear, anytime you watch William Lane Craig give this presentation, or really any apologist, they always go with the traditional three explanations, right? You have design, physical necessity, or chance. To me, chance, I get why they're putting it in there, but to me, it doesn't even belong in the category of explanations, because chance isn't an explanation. It's a word we use to describe outcomes, or the odds of outcomes, or describe probabilities. So, like, if they all miss, there's a reason they all missed, and the reason they missed wasn't chance. Like, so if they missed because they're all terrible marksmen, well, they're all terrible marksmen. That's why they missed. It wasn't chance. If they missed because someone sabotaged the equipment, well, then that's the reason. It's not chance. It was designed to be that way. So to be chance, it's not an explanation. So it describes an outcome.
I think with that as well. I think chance would be appropriate for the naturalist, or however view of atheism you take. I think atheism has classification of worldviews. One doesn't have to be an atheist, and like with naturalism, I would say they're inconsistent, but they don't have to be that. But anyway, I think that on most consistent atheism, on naturalism, and if you take the Big Bang as authentic, it's just like, oh, there's one, it comes out one time. It's not like being reproduced over again. That's why they go with the multiverse. And it's just like, I rarely see people using chance, but, one universe comes out and it's just like, well, it could have been different. So really, chance seems to have to be an explanation that it happened for no reason and by no reason, for almost no description whatsoever. And that sort of seems what chance could be.
Okay, fair enough. So chance, yes, as an explanation of the outcome, that's a very fair point. I was more talking about it as the explanation of how it got to be this way. Because to me, it's like, okay, let's say you did have complete like the Lawrence Krauss view, which is this quantum realm, right? And then it just randomly spits out a universe. Well, then that's the explanation of it. And then, yeah, you can use chance to describe the outcome, but you can't use chance to describe how, we got the chemistry we had. That was something to do with the quantum realm.
I agree. I actually wonder if people use quantum mechanics against fine-tuning. But stuff in quantum mechanics, I'm pretty sure. Well, it will be hard to say it's fine-tuned because it's not like classical mechanics where, things are based on predictions in mathematics. Well, that's the whole point of quantum mechanics, that it doesn't work like classical mechanics. So it almost would seem random or by chance, but I'm not an expert in quantum mechanics, so
Yeah, nor
what do
I.
I say there.
I would find it ironic if someone appealed to quantum mechanics to explain design, because I mean you can imagine that being the case, right? You can imagine them saying, well, there's just a certain if quantum mechanics is the fundamental reality and there's just a certain rationality built into it, then whatever universe it spits out is going to have those properties. But it would just be ironic because in the debates we have when we talk about everything that begins to exist needing cause, they always point to the quantum realm to say, well, see, things pop into existence out of nothing there. So they're pointing to it as an example of the non-rational laws applying.
I would agree.
So I did actually, one of the things I heard Jay Warner Wallace say about the multiverse actually kind of, I was like, oh, that's brilliant. I can't believe I hadn't thought of that before. And what it was because they always appeal to the multiverse, right? Because the idea is, because we've been talking about chance, the idea is, okay, if we just have this universe, right? The Big Bang only happens once. You just have this universe. What's the chances you're going to get this universe? And then they can say, oh, but the multiverse, you have billions of these, infinite amount of universes. One of them's just going to happen to be like this one, right? And so the idea is, even if a finely tuned universe.
Mathematically, that doesn't have to be the case. You could have one of the same universe probabilities.
I'm glad you said that. That's one thing I always thought of, because the analogy people like to point to is a monkey typing Shakespeare, right? They say if a monkey types infinitely, if it's infinite, and they're applying actual infinite here, well, eventually you're going to get something like Shakespeare. My thought is, well, why can't it just be the same nonsense over and over? Why do they're assuming this law, which is that every single one has to be different.
Yeah, well, that's letting them go even farther. I just question, well, how do you know there's just not one other dimension that accounts for the great galaxy seeds? Because that's what the argument seems to be based off, that the multiverse makes predictions, and that's why we should go with it. But I don't see how you make the conclusion. There are billions of universes out there, because it seems like something outside of our universe may interact with the great galaxy seeds, however they want to do that. But I just question, how do you know there are billions? Why can't there be 2 or 3 and be the same case? Like, it's so much speculation. It's like people want to say metaphysics are speculation, even though the multiverse would be metaphysical in the sense of our space-time. But at the same time, it's just like, no, the laws of logic aren't, something can't come from nothing. Those aren't speculative, but the multiverse is very speculative. Then the fact that you have this thing that can generate universes over and over again, that seems to have to be more fine-tuned than our universe itself.
Yeah. Well, so to that point, because typically the advocate of the multiverse says there's an infinite amount of universes, which is kind of what they need. Because if they let's just say they said there's 3 billion universes, okay, why not 3 billion and 1? Why not 3 billion and 2? Why not 1 million? Why not 1 trillion? So it would be kind of arbitrary to pick a number. And so typically they say there's an infinite amount of universes, right? And that's supposed to help them even more into, if even a small percentage, if the smallest possible percentage you can think of that infinite is going to be a finely designed universe, well, guess what? You're going to get that eventually, because you have infinite universes.
We have to watch the word design, because they don't want to say it's designed.
Yeah, okay, we'll say finely tuned universe.
But
right? So
just real quick, just ask this question. In these infinite amount of universes, is there other life forms out there? Because if so, it seems like your argument just falls apart, because now there's other universes that would have to be fine-tuned. I just want to say, well, they have different laws, but then the laws of physics are not objective and are just really descriptive, so you can't use that against miracles. I just think they go in circles and contradict themselves with... This is why I like the fine-tuning argument, because these seem to be the objections.
Yeah. Well, so anyway, the observation J. Warner Wallace made, which I thought was so brilliant, is he said, okay, so basically the argument is, okay, it's just a small percentage of the universes that'll be finely tuned, right? It says, okay, but what is a small percentage? Like, let's just pick a random 0.3%, right? What is a small percentage of an infinite? It's an infinite, right? 0.3% of an infinite is an infinite amount of universes. So it would have to be an infinite amount of universes that are finely tuned. And so you don't get away from the explanation. And then let's say a small percentage of those universes are ones where you and I are having this exact same conversation, but my shirt is red instead of blue. Okay, it's a small percentage of an infinite, but a small percentage of infinite is...
Well, if there's other universes literally where we're on opposite sides, it's just like, again, like I pointed out, you don't escape fine-tuning whatsoever. But I don't think they're purporting that. There could be, like, you can grant them the possibility, but when you start saying, well, the possibility, I think this is where Tom Jump's sort of argument, where if you have the box and the rabbit, and then all the explanations can equally account for the weight. This seems to be a good analogy for that, because look, there's nothing to work with, so you're just speculating on what these universes may be like. There's nothing to work with, while Tom Jump's analogy fails because you actually have stuff to work with theism to make actual conclusions with what we can observe and conclude from philosophy.
Yeah, I just really like that, because the whole idea is it's so unlikely, but it'll happen. But on that view, if you have an infinite amount of universes that turn out this, it's not unlikely. And so you still have to explain, okay, how do you get an infinite amount of finely tuned universes? It just doesn't get them anywhere.
It doesn't.
So is there anything else you want to bring up about the fine-tuning argument? Because I'm really liking this.
Yeah, someone pointed out in the chat that, like, an actual infinite in the first place isn't really possible. So the multiverse, if it has a beginning, then ultimately it probably has to be fine-tuned. But
well, I actually thought about that too. So remember, we picked our number, 0.3% of all the universes that come into existence are going to be finely tuned, right? Random number, but we're just working with that. Okay, don't hold us to it. Okay, we're not claiming that that's actually the case. And so maybe the atheist or the naturalist could object and say, oh no, but we're not talking about an actual infinite, we're talking about a potential infinite. So a finite period of time ago, however they want to work that out, random universes started coming into existence randomly, and this is still happening. And so it's only a small percentage of those. So we're not talking about an infinite number of universes, we're talking about a finite number of universes, because in the grand scheme of things, we're only talking about a potential infinite. That still actually wouldn't solve their problem. Because if you think, okay, the first, or let's just say, of 100 universes, of the first 100 universes that come to existence, 0.3 are going to be finely tuned, right? The problem is, for the potential infinite, is this 100 keeps repeating itself. It stays finite, but it keeps repeating itself out into the future. And so you still, if 0.3% of those 100 universes are always going to be finely tuned, then even though that's potential infinite, it's still going to go out to infinite eventually. It's not ever going to equal infinite, but it doesn't get them away from, okay, you're still consistently getting these finely tuned universes, so you need an explanation for them.
Well, I find it funny now that I think about it. This is basically Marvel Comics, and it's funny because they won't be like, well, theists believe in basically comic books because, Spider-Man, there's evidence for Spider-Man, there's New York. They want to use the comic book analogy, but it's just like, literally, you're reporting something that is in comic books, the multiverse. Doctor Strange and the Madness of the Multiverse. That's a movie coming out in like 2021 or something. It's just like, you literally, not everything in Doctor Strange, but it seems like you want to purport that a multiverse actually exists from comics, which to me sounds like magic, but
I would like to point out, this may be a pure coincidence. There were like 3 or 4 people watching while Caption Christianity was doing his live stream, and since his live streams ended, we're up to like 8. So I don't know if that's a coincidence, but that's funny.
It probably is. Or no, it probably isn't, my bad. But, yeah. Oh, I guess one more objection I could deal with, which I want to do in my one article that I plan on, I've planned on doing an article on dealing with the top 10 objections to the fine-tuning argument, because I did one with the Kalam. I probably will do a second one with the Kalam, maybe, because there's so many more objections I thought of and have responses to. But Richard Dawkins' argument that, look, if you want to explain complexity, then your explanation has to be more complex, basically, and he wants to argue this goes into an infinite regress. With the doctrine of divine simplicity, God is not composed of parts. There's nothing complex to God. He's the same as his essence, basically. I'm not purporting that keep saying purporting. I don't hold to an Aquinas absolute simplicity, but I still think the idea that God is the same as his essence is compatible with other fields of theology, I guess, or just the basic doctrine that God has no parts. And if that's the case, there's no complexity to God, and there's no real explanation needed, or fine-tuning, I should say, in this case. We're not dealing with a contingency argument.
Well, okay, so let me play devil's advocate. So, okay, Mr. John, you may say God's not complex because he's not composed of parts, but actually, it turns out he's really complex, especially if you get into the things like doctrines of the Trinity. It gets very complex, and God taking on human form, and God having all these random laws he wants people to obey. It does get really complex, Mr. John.
Which part do you want me to deal with first, the doctrine of the Trinity or the Incarnation?
Well, you have the burden of proof, sir. You pick whichever one you want.
Okay, I'll go with the Trinity first. The essence of God is simple. Persons are not composed of parts. Each person of the Trinity contains the essence of God, so each person of the Trinity is simple, meaning no parts, so partialism is avoided, so the essence of God is simple and the parts of the Trinity are simple, so there's still no complexity in the way you want to purport it, at least. Maybe metaphysically, but we're not explaining metaphysics, we're explaining physical things here, like a universe that you still haven't given me an answer to. You're just avoiding the argument and just using basically a quo fallacy, even though I butchered that. And then the incarnation, God sort of indwells in human body, I would say. The second person of the Trinity, which is simple. So yes, God in a way becomes man, but it's still God indwelling in a human body. He can feel things, but I don't see a problem. I don't see how it violates the law of non-contradiction. Unless you want to espouse that more, or you may just push your incredulity back onto me, but, whatever you want to do, I guess.
That's I think it's adorable how you special plead on behalf of God. No, I'm just kidding. No,
how would I special plead?
Well, because you want a designer for the universe, but when it comes to God, he's metaphysically simple, even though he has the power to create the universe that you say is so complicated. So of course you would have to build in that power into your explanation. But
yeah, I have the power to build a laptop. I can gather the parts together. I'm more complex than a laptop. Do I not exist then?
I think but you need an explanation, just like the laptop needs an explanation. Checkmate, game over, I win.
I could maybe grant that, but that won't refute design, which is the whole point. Now, if you want to get into God being eternal and the whole Kalam cosmological argument, then that's a whole other field, which is just going to be I can't really curse on here probably. Or say bad words. Human feces.
Listen, here's the thing. Might as well just. I don't typically cuss in my videos. I'm not going to pretend like I'm a saint that, like, when I'm off camera that I'm perfect and I don't cuss. That's not the case. I can have quite the mouth on me. Now, to your point, as a general rule for the videos, I don't cuss because I am trying to reach a certain audience. Although I will say, if you look at on my channel at a particular video called Clark Griswold on How I Met Your Mother, I forget how it's titled, but we'll just look at that, and that says it's fair. So I did want to read this question before it gets lost. What's your opinion on the debate between William Lane Craig and Sean Carroll? I did want to say just real quick, it was very technical. I actually do want to go back and watch it again, because when things are that technical and there's that technical language, I do tend to kind of space off at certain points. But my overall take from it was it's a perfect example of why you can't just have the science and know the data, but you have to have a proper philosophical foundation to interpret the data. And William Lane Craig has that, and Sean Carroll didn't, and I think that made all the difference.
I think he probably was, I won't say beating, but at the same time he had good counterpoints to the scientific points. Craig, they agreed on a lot, I think, on the science, but at the same time, obviously he's a physicist, he knows more about the science, but his metaphysics suck. Because he purported multiverse, and as we talked, there's many problems with that. I liked it. I think it was probably Craig's one of his more harder debates than someone like Christopher Hitchens, but I enjoyed it because I thought it was a good exchange. But I haven't seen it in like 2 years, so I don't have any specifics like you were talking about.
Yeah. Well, that was I just kind of gave an overall view of it. That seemed to me to be the main difference. Became to a debate because, like you said, they agree a lot on a lot of the physics, but you have to have that proper philosophical framework to make sense of the data. What other arguments do you like?
What other what?
Arguments do you like? I'm trying to think what else I can ask you. Or is there anything?
I like the Kalam ontological. I want to make a free will argument. I have places in Thomas Aquinas and Aristotle to talk about sort of intention and choice. Those are sort of my starting points for and deliberation too. But go ahead.
Well, no, I was going to say, the ontological argument, I have a love-hate relationship with the ontological argument because when I first came across it forever ago, I didn't like it. I was like, there's no way that you can argue from just the mere possibility of God, that it follows that God exists. And even when I looked at the premises, I wasn't convinced. And then even when I watched videos of it, I wasn't convinced. And then when I read Reasonable Faith, I was like, I don't know how I could refute this. And so I actually... It's funny enough, as a Christian apologist, I was trying really hard to come up with refutations to the ontological argument because there was just something I can't explain it. There was just something I didn't like about it, and turns out the more I tried to refute it, and the more I tried to come up with objections for it, I kind of affirmed it, and I can't get around it. I do think it's a sound argument.
Yeah, but you can have a maximally great piece of. That's necessary, and that creates the universe. It's a conscious ball of matter pizza, so that controls naturalistic pantheism.
Fair enough. Yeah, well, that's another one of Tom Jump's points is that maximally great is kind of a made-up term that we kind of just randomly make up things like power and goodness to go into there. If you watch his actual debate,
I would say it's definitional. If he wants to go that route, we just make up words and we make up meanings, so we just make up our cosmologies and we just make up truth. Otherwise, he's special pleads if I understand what you're saying correctly. But so if he's saying we just made up the terms omnipotence, maximally great, and so on, basically we just got them out of nowhere. Is that what he was basically saying?
I don't want to put words in his mouth. I would just point everybody to the debate he did with Ben Arbor. He had Ben Arbor on his channel. And I thought Ben Arbor did an excellent job.
No, he debated that. Yeah, he debated Ben Arbor. I have to watch that for future context. Actually, I won't bookmark that now.
Yeah, let me hold on because True Gamers said, "Can I answer his question?" But I didn't actually see it, so I'm going back and looking for it. Actually, could you retype it? That would help.
What's his last name? Paul Arbor?
Ben.
Oh, Ben. Why did I start thinking of Paul? That's the guy Cameron Bertuzzi did the interview with on the ontological argument, right?
Yes, I think so. Yeah. Hey, question for people watching now, and a question for you. So I've been thinking about a video I wanted to do, and I wasn't planning on doing it live. I was kind of thinking of just kind of pre-recording it and then editing it together, maybe putting some slides and stuff. But you guys can tell me if you'd be interested in seeing it live. I want to do a video dealing with Ben Shapiro's arguments against Jesus, because he's made some claims that to me it's like Ben Shapiro, he's the most reasonable, well thought out, rational person I know of. But then all of a sudden,
in politics.
Well, I was going to say, all of a sudden, when you get William Lane Craig on his show, he's willing to just do it was written 2,000 years ago, so how can we really know?
I know.
You know what?
I know. I remember that. That was my favorite one so far of the Ben Shapiro Sunday show. That and Steven Crowder truly, literally wearing basically no pants, just underwear. I mean, he had shorts on, but basically they were underwear. And
that was amazing. They were Ranger panties, is what they were.
They were something that was funny.
It was amazing. So apparently some arguments going on in the comment section that I haven't been following, but somebody did just say, so do you think time began for them with the creation of angels, but preceding the beginning of time in our universe? And somebody said yes. So I don't actually see any reason to think that angels were created prior to the universe. I think, I mean, especially if you look at Genesis and you look within the account of the 6-day creation, I don't see any reason to think that angels weren't created during that time period, but just aren't mentioned explicitly because they don't have anything directly to do with our universe. I don't see any reason why you would need angels created prior to the universe.
Well, then again, it would be the assigning a function, I guess, because I was just going to say, well, if you take Genesis 1:27 to mean, let us make man in our image, if that's God talking to his council, like some people may hold to. We're talking about the plurality of God's nature. I'll probably hold to something
that's
like
what I do believe that, because if you actually look at the verse, and Nabil Qureshi pointed this out, in the Hebrew, it treats there's some new. I don't want to say this wrong. He said it much better than I did, but essentially, it is the plural word for God, but the phrase and the verse treats it as if it's singular. So you have a plurality and singular there at the same time. So I do think that's referring to the Trinity.
Oh, you think that is reference to the Trinity?
Yeah.
I think it's sort of talking about the plurality of God's nature.
Well, that's the same thing. That's just what I mean.
Well, not plurality in persons, but plurality in essence, I guess. But it could be.
Oh no, yeah, I do think it's plurality per persons. But that's just my take on it.
Yeah, that's fine. I just think there's more hermeneutics that has to go into that verse, because it's almost like, look, you read the New Testament. Oh, God is triune also in the New Testament. I wouldn't dispute that. I'm not saying he's not triune in the Old Testament. I just think the message for Israel had to be that God is one. And I think if you give this idea of, especially to the Jews who didn't really think about these things, ancient Jews, obviously, they would probably see God as polytheistic, since they were struggling with that, and they had to understand that God is one in essence.
So I'll disagree with you on that, although I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give away too much of what I'm going to talk about in my video dealing with Ben Shapiro's objections. But the early Jews actually believed in in a binitarian God. They believed that there was at least two persons in God's nature, and it was because there were so many times and references in the Old Testament talking about God's at least two persons.
You get that around Philo and like basically the Jews before Jesus' day became sort of binitarian.
They were binitarian, but in response to the early Christians, they had to kind of hammer down and say, no, God is completely one.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Dr. Michael Brown makes good points on that.
Job.
What is that? What is that noise in your background?
I apologize. This chair is really loud anytime I... Is that what you're hearing? The chair? Or no?
No, I hear like an air conditioner or something.
Oh, shoot. That probably is my air conditioner. This vent is... Unfortunately, this desk is built into the wall here, so I can't actually move it. And there's a vent. We have central air. There's a vent directly above the desk. So actually, I am planning on putting these things up around the place. I just got a table everywhere. I just haven't gotten to it yet.
So here's my question for you. If everything needs a cause, then what caused God?
Well, personally, I think it was naturalistic pantheism that caused God. No. So this actually, no, I will say this is a good point.
I think it was your pantheism that controls reality and makes us perceive things that we're actually not seeing.
Well, so this is a good point, because this is something Tom John points out, which is that even if we could have an argument for a God, we can't know that he's like the absolute first order in things. That we could always discover some greater God apart from him.
I think divine simplicity works so well with these, because look, you have this simple being. Why not stop with a being with no parts?
Well, so to me, it's kind of, well, so me and him have very different fundamentally things. I do think that we are capable of getting at metaphysical reality, of understanding it, and making claims like a first order of things. And I don't agree with him that's a stopping point in knowledge. So to be fair, me and him just kind of disagree. He doesn't think you can get at that. So to be fair to his world, he doesn't think you can get at that. Now, me personally, I might grant him that certain arguments don't necessarily get you at a, let's just say, a creator of the universe who couldn't have an external cause. Some of the arguments you could make that argument that they don't necessarily get at an uncreated creator, just a creator of the universe. The problem is it's, you said your favorite argument is the cumulative case. When you look cumulatively, hold on, I'm going to keep talking before that comes up. If you look cumulatively at all the arguments, and you have one explanation which fits them all. It does start, and it's the simplest explanation, and it's only one that explains all the data, and then it is something like a first cause that doesn't need a cause itself. Put that back up again, so that way you can make the primary sound and it'll go as the main screen.
Well, I'm seeing what other atheist memes I have. What is this?
Okay, so TrueGamer69 asks, I've been wondering lately, if an eternal/timeless God exists, how would creation ever happen? I'm a Christian, just tapping into my skeptic side. Well, yeah, I figured you're a Christian. So to me, that's free will. That's it. And you can also you can think of it because
wait, repeat the question.
It's if an eternal, timeless God exists, how would creation ever happen? And I think that the assumption is kind of like, well, if God's timeless, how does he not just produce timeless effects? And I think there's two points to make here. One is, and William Lane Craig makes this point, which is the reason you can't have a non-personal cause of the universe. And so you would be right if we were just talking about a non-personal cause, because non-personal causes don't make new choices, new decisions. So like the example Craig gives, which is assume that the cause of water's freezing is the temperature being below 0 degrees centigrade. Well, if the temperature were below 0 degrees centigrade from eternity's past, then any water that was around would be frozen from eternity's past, and so you wouldn't have a new effect arising from a timeless cause. But if the timeless cause is a personal agent endowed with freedom of the will, like let's say a man who has been sitting from eternity's past could freely choose to stand up, and you would have a new effect. So I would say it's a combination of God's choice, his free choice, and his acting in the universe. So his act is the first moment, and then subsequent actions are other moments. And so there's change in God's actions, which initiate time and keep it going.
How do you define eternal?
So in this context, I would assume it means timeless.
Okay. What do you mean by timeless?
Devoid of all temporality, devoid of time. Absent of time.
Okay, what does that imply? Do you want to hear my definition of eternality, which I think solves the problem?
Go for it.
I think God has always. There's never been a moment in which God has never existed. So if you have a potential infinite, I think God's existence is a potential infinite. It just goes back that way, because if you take an A theory that God, we both agree on this, God is, going through. I think your first answer was fine as well, but God is. How would you say it? God is experiencing every new distinct moment.
I would say there's a distinction in experiential moments for God.
So God sort of experiences a sequence of events once time exists, and
yes.
I think just as long as there's not an actual God isn't existing in an actual infinite, then I think God can easily create from a timeless state to a temporal state, because there's not an actual infinite. Now I think on Trent Doherty's view, where B theory of time is true, and there's like almost, I don't know if he believes in an actual infinite, but if there's an actual infinite going this way, like in set theory of infinite, I have a video called "What Is Infinity" that explains it. Infinity doesn't explain all of it, but explains a good summary of it. I think I played a clip of Dr. William Craig. Then you can ask the question, well, how did God create this block of time if it's all the way that way, but time isn't really a thing. There's no real such thing as causation. I think that's where the problem comes into. And I think I tried pointing this out to him in the after show, because I think that entailed like logical fatalism, and God somehow is experiencing all these moments before they exist, because they don't exist all the way in the past. So if they don't exist all the way in the past, how does God create them, sort of?
Well, I'll be interested when I have Trent on the show, what he says about that, because this is something I've been trying to think through, because I'm not convinced it solves the problem of a timeless universe, timeless with God into eternity's past, to simply just say, but it's contingent on God. Because Trent kind of outlined something, which was something can exist necessarily, or what would you say? He kind of, I don't want to misrepresent it. It kind of seemed to me like he was advocating a view where something can be simultaneously necessary but contingent. So necessary in the sense that it exists eternally in the past, but it doesn't say challenge God's divine aseity because it's contingent upon him. And so to me is, if the universe exists timelessly with God, how is there not something necessarily in God's nature that necessitates that be the kind of universe that's contingent on him?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I sort of didn't hear that. Sorry, I was trying to pull up another atheist meme.
There's something we might disagree on, but I'm not sure I understood you say it right. What did you mean by a potential infinite going back that way? Hold on, what is that? Make some noise so I can see that.
Oh, can you see it now? Basically,
Parker Cameron.
Parker Cameron?
It's in poor Kirk Cameron.
Poor Cook Cameron?
Kirk. I know his name. Captain Kirk. Captain Kirk.
Oh, going back this way?
Yeah, what did you mean by that? Potential infinite going back that way?
So every moment would have to coexist along with God on the timeline going back. But it would also be going this way on, I would say, consistent B theory or infinite block time theory, where all these moments are necessary, sort of, and exist in an actual infinite state. Meaning, there's no potential in moments. All these moments exist. It's basically just use the Hilbert's Hotel analogy.
Did you say on a B theory state or on your view? I thought you were expressing
no, on a B theory.
Oh, okay,
on B theory.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to avoid that view with an A theory.
Yeah, okay. So we're on the same page. Just checking.
Yeah, that's fine.
But no, so go ahead with it. What were you saying? Because you were about to say something about Hilbert's Hotel.
What was I saying?
Because we were talking about potential infinite going backwards and forwards, right?
Yeah, that would be well, potential infinite can go forward this way, and it never reaches infinity. And you could say that. You know, that I think about this even more, because you sort of have the timeline, and then you have sort of time starting. You also got to remember that before God creates, not God.
Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, before God creates, he's timeless, and you can't really say there's moments or a sequence of events. So that solves the issue as well. With that previous question, I think, because once God decides to create, the first action ever really taken comes into existence along with creation. I don't see where the problem's at.
Yeah. So something just occurred to me, and it would probably be best for me not to speculate, since it just occurred to me. It would probably be best for me to wait and ask Michael Jones, but I'm just going to express it. Maybe we can think through it. So the B theory of time is that, okay, there's just this block of the universe, right? Whether you believe God created that at some finite time ago or exists co-eternally with God, right? So on the B, so make some noise so we can see that.
Oh, when a Christian confronts me with evidence I can't refute, I just pretend nothing was ever said, like all atheists. like your devil's advocate.
Yeah, that's funny. No, what was I saying? Okay,
All right.
so I'm trying to think about this. So on the B theory, right? Do you
Why
ever?
wouldn't it? Hold on. I'm trying to get this to. Oh, did I stop it? Okay, good. I accidentally hit hide on the message to stop screen sharing. Okay, I'm done screen sharing memes.
So on the B theory, there's when we say there's a beginning of the universe, what we mean is there's a front edge, right? And so there's type because the timeline exists in its entirety, right? But so there's that front edge which we would consider okay, the creation of the universe, and then moments after that. I'm curious if the B theorists believe there's an end edge, like if there's an end, like if there's a okay, so we have this front edge. Do we have this back edge? And to me, as as an atheist, I could see maybe having that, like when the universe goes to heat death, or so, I don't know, there's some point at which it all stops. Which maybe on an atheist worldview, you can't have that. On the Christian worldview, that would be even more bizarre, because typically we think of heaven or the new heavens and the new earth, whatever that is, that's eternal, like that goes on forever without end with God. Now, on an A theory of time, that makes perfect sense, right? God just continues to uphold reality, whether it be in heaven or whatever, until an end. On a B theory, though, if the timeline exists in its entirety, how can you have an actual infinite long timeline exist? It's kind of that talk about how God can't create a one-ended stick. God can't do optional possibilities. But that's exactly what a B theory of time would be a one-ended stick, unless you're willing to say there's an end edge in which all moments cease. And if there's only this prior portion of fellowship we experience with God in heaven that precedes the end of the earth. And technically, you could say that's eternal, right? Because the entire block exists eternally. But still, that would be bizarre to me to have an end edge. Otherwise, you're left with the one-ended stick.
I like that analogy for one-ended stick. No, I think you're right there. I agree.
Yeah.
So is there anything you want to ask before I do devil's advocate with you for 10 minutes?
No, let's go for it.
Okay, then we can go for like 20. I'm going to try and get this to fit on my headphones. This looks really retarded. Oh, I canceled that. Sorry.
I love that during the after party when we were talking and you said, I have some thoughts on this, and your screen just became full screen of you and your fedora was sitting on top of your headphones. That was the best moment.
Yeah, this is really gonna fit. But so you're a theist,
Wait a minute,
right?
Hold on. John went somewhere. Who's this I'm speaking with?
I am his subconsciousness telling him that deep down he knows that he's just believing in superstitious goat herder nonsense, and that he's just being an apologist to make a quick buck. I am the embodiment of his thoughts that he suppressed. I have come here to put an end to the unapologetic apologists.
Okay. All right. Well, you're welcome to speak.
But see, I don't have to actually end you. I don't have to like give a case against you because you have the burden of proof. So you have to disprove all the claims I didn't make and prove your claims.
Well, you have to make
so tell me why do you feel the need to hold your mental capacity down to theism and not go rising above? By the way, everyone, I want to plug my merch. You can go to my store shop at Atheism Through Reason, Logic, and Science.com or .edu. But go ahead and tell me why.
Did you just make that up on the spot?
No, I made that up during. What are you talking about? Make up on the spot? It's an actual thing. I definitely didn't make that up in the debate. I destroyed IP and.
Wait. Tell me what this website is.
Atheism Through Logic, Reason, and Science.edu. I would laugh if that's an actual website.
No, this site cannot be reached. Okay. I typed the whole thing in though.
Well, you're a theist. I'll give you a pass. You probably misspelled something or didn't use proper grammar, or probably use Internet Explorer.
Actually, no. I hate Internet Explorer. Google Chrome all the way. What do you use? Firefox?
No, I use Chrome.
Good. So, good. We agree on that. So, anyway, you said I have to refute your claim. So, what's a claim you'd like me to refute?
You should have been paying attention. My claim is that there is no evidence for God. You can have a box with 2 pounds in it. You could say, oh, look, there's a rabbit. Or I could say, no, there's a naturalistic pantheist law that puts 2 pounds into that box. We just don't know what it is. But theism wants to claim to know everything and wants to go beyond human knowledge and claim, oh, look, we have an answer to everything. I don't know, and neither do you. So why do you keep claiming you know? By the way, you're probably only a Christian because you're either raised that way
one objection
or
at a time.
indoctrinated.
One claim at a time.
Or you had an experience that
I wasn't indoctrinated, but
that wasn't a delusion. I'm not going to say probably is a delusion. Or you're just afraid of death.
I'm going to forget what I was going to say.
Which one is it?
So number one,
Those are the only possibilities.
Here's the thing. I don't claim to know everything. So one of the
you're a theist. You claim to have all the answers. Why do you?
Nope.
Why do you?
I claim to have very specific answers to very specific questions. So
that's even worse.
Hold on. Let's go with your. No, it's not worse. That's more modest. Let's go with your point about
you can know more details about just broad ideas. Oh, sorry. Do you want me to be a polite atheist where I don't keep interrupting you? I'm still
you
maintaining.
Can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. So,
okay, no, I'll listen.
Let's get back to your. You said something about 2 pounds in a box, right? And if there's 2 pounds in a box, that's not actually evidence for a rabbit. It's evidence for a bunch of things that could be in the box that weigh 2 pounds, right? You said that. Well, here's the thing.
I heard it from some guy online.
Unless the box itself weighs 2 pounds, let's assume that the box itself weighs significantly less, right? Then if the box weighs 2 pounds, there's evidence that there's something in the box. Do we agree on that?
Well, yeah, it's common sense.
Yeah. So when it comes to the Kalam, for example, I would say that there's evidence of some cause outside the universe. It doesn't have to be the God I believe in. But there's evidence of something.
It's possible that a deistic God or something exists, but your God I know is false. I mean, not being allowed to eat pork, shrimp, or getting tattoos, that just makes no sense.
Yes.
Or you're a hypocrite. See,
I am
regeneration is a thing.
Here's the thing. If
you believe in talking snakes and donkeys,
if a person has any moral standards whatsoever, they're a hypocrite because they can't live up to them. So, what'd you say? What was the last thing you said?
I said you believe in talking snakes and donkeys.
Now, I know I believe in that there was a snake who talked and there was a donkey who talked. As a general rule, I don't believe in talking snakes and donkeys, though.
But you just said you did, that there was a talking snake and talking donkey.
Okay, what I said, because you already agreed. You said my God doesn't exist, right? But you granted, okay, maybe atheist God.
It's a fact.
Even
Aaron has proved it.
Sure.
Faith is believing that which there is no evidence and is defended against all evidence.
Hey, wait a minute. All I need, though, if you granted deistic God, then you can't actually rule out a talking snake.
I said, well, actually, he doesn't interact with anything, so you can't use it.
Oh, I guess, technically on the deistic hypothesis, you could say that. Although that whole hypothesis.
I have to help you theists out with your own arguments.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Well, no, hold on, because even on a deistic God, all that means is he hasn't interacted yet. He could. He has the power to create a talking snake or talking.
Yeah, but he's not going to, because otherwise he won't be deistic.
Sure, that's good. But here's the thing. This is a separate note. This would be a debate to have for the deists. I'm not actually convinced that the deistic hypothesis is viable. I don't actually believe you could have, that it's actually a logical possibility to have a universe that kind of just runs down on its own.
Well, that's me saying, for the sake of argument, the Kalam argument, fine-tuning would employ some sort of interaction. So the Kalam, I'll grant you for the sake of argument, but that already has holes in it. It doesn't even mention God. What caused God? You just special plead.
Hey, let me ask you a question. If I said somebody wrote this down It didn't happen on its own. Somebody wrote this down. Do you find that to be a viable claim?
Well, yeah, but there's been a long length through
No,
determinism.
Hold on.
You're genetics. You're just material. So really, your consciousness isn't a thing. You are just a
Wait,
material thing
Wait,
interacting with time, space, and
I
matter.
know where you're going with that, and that's not the argument I'm making. I'm just saying somebody wrote this down, right?
I wouldn't use the word somebody. I would say a thing. I don't believe in a soul, so somebody isn't really appropriate.
You don't believe somebody is inappropriate. So, okay, apart from a person, how could this have happened?
Through a long chain of determinism of space, time, and matter interacting with each other.
That would still mean a person did it, even if you're saying I was determined to write it down.
Well,
I as a person wrote it down.
I think you're ultimately a brain that gives you the illusion of consciousness. So I won't even say a person.
Okay, so
but if you do anything wrong, I'm holding you accountable.
Would you say a brain with the ability to control a hand is responsible for this?
What?
It doesn't have to be mine. But would you say a brain?
The neurons control it. There is no free will whatsoever. Matter picked up this piece of matter, picked up that piece of matter, and drew that on that piece of matter. It's all matter. There's no mind.
It's a shame you don't know where I'm going with this, because then you would realize you're already affirming where I'm going with this. But I will grant you all of that. So you will say, okay. Okay. So deterministic neurons are responsible for this.
Yes.
Okay.
Along with other things, genetic environment.
Okay. So that is a single statement. Neurons with genetic interaction and biology are responsible for this, right?
Yes.
Nowhere in that statement did I mention me. Did I mention what I'm like? Did I mention my attributes? And yet, we wouldn't say that the implications of the statement you affirmed aren't me. I'm the implications of it. I did write it down. So it doesn't matter that the clown doesn't say anything about God. Those are the implications.
Well, see, you're still assuming you're a person. I'm saying you're a brain trapped inside a body. And, all that long through evolution, all that. See, we're not even scientists. Why are we even talking about this stuff? I mean...
Because you brought it up.
No, I didn't. You brought it up. You're the theist. You're the one making claims that you haven't proved yet, by the way.
Okay, well, so I wrote this, and I don't have to be explicit in the statement of somebody wrote it for the implications to be that I wrote it. It's the same with the Quran. God doesn't have to be specifically in the premises.
Well, you know what? Fine, I'll grant you that a person wrote down paper with pen. You're not omnipotent. You're not omniscient. You've never been timeless. You're stuck in time space. So the analogy doesn't work unless you want to say God is trapped in time space.
Nope. Whatever
God is, we don't have a coherent definition of God. There are 35,000
is perfectly coherent. The analogy works fine because the analogy is irrelevant of timelessness or temporality. All the analogy is to say is that the implications of the statement don't have to be in the statement in order for it to be coherent. That's all.
Why wouldn't you just add God in the statement? It'll be... See, why do we even have to argue? If God is all-loving and omniscient and so on, he would know what it would take to convince me. But yet, he's playing hide-and-seek for some reason, so I don't even understand why.
Is it possible that...
And then you're a Christian. He used copies of copies of copies of copies of copies of copies, time and actual infinite.
Okay, you got to pick one topic.
The message has been changed.
You got to pick one topic. You got to pick one topic. Which one of those do you want to go with?
Whatever you want to do. I'm just bringing out the ultimate argument that smashes theism.
Yes. So, is it possible that nothing would convince you?
Is it possible that nothing would convince me? No, because God is omniscient.
Okay.
What would convince me?
No. So hold on. So you have to answer the question of what would convince you.
It would be quite convincing if Jesus was strapped to a chair, they electrocuted him on live TV and just shocked him, and then let him sit there for 3 days and see if he comes back alive. That would be quite interesting.
So would you then become a Christian if that happened?
No.
Why not?
Because your God's a moral monster, and that still won't prove that God exists. So.
Oh, it wouldn't prove that God exists. So that's okay. So that wouldn't convince you then.
No, it would, but it's still not convincing. I'm literally doing a Matt Dillahunty. I'm compiling. Oh wait, I'm doing a Matt Dillahunty. I'm compiling this video together. I'm compiling this video where he's always saying nothing would convince me, but in his debate with Mike Wenger, he literally uses that analogy that I did, that he would be convinced if Jesus was strapped to a chair in a prison and was his terms exactly, if they put his ass in the electric chair and shocked him and he came back 3 days later and it was recorded on live news to the world, that would be convincing. It's like I'm putting these clips together.
That's the debate with Mike Winger, right?
Oh yeah, the one Mike Winger got destroyed on.
Yeah. Oh, I see. So here's a question, Mr. Subconscious with John Duffy. How much longer do you have?
An actual infinite. I don't know, maybe 20 minutes.
Okay, I don't want to keep you super late if you got.
That's what I work at too, so.
Okay.
But
so I was just going to ask.
I work at 2.
I was going to ask if you want to switch roles.
No, I won't keep doing. I won't be the atheist.
Okay, fair enough. Well, then let me just.
This isn't our officials. I may take this clip and just upload it to my channel because that would be pretty funny.
Fair enough. Well, I just want to show you something then, real quick. There you go.
If you had a fedora that said atheist on it, then I would be more impressed. Atheists aren't cool enough to wear. I'm kidding. This is a joke. Atheists aren't cool enough to wear hats like that.
Oh, really? Okay. So I've been listening to you destroy Stallman Smith. It's been quite enjoyable. How did you?
Are you his internal subconsciousness?
I am.
See, both these stupid theists, they just don't want to admit that. They're just trying to make a quick buck.
Yeah, I mean,
except JMD when he got monetized, but besides that, I made 23 cents so far, or he made 23 cents so far. So, what were you saying?
No, I was just gonna say I was listening to you. You're making a very compelling case.
I know I was. Well, he refuted himself half the time, but go ahead.
I know. Well, he keeps saying things, and deep down he knows what he's saying is BS. But he kind of feels like he's backed into a corner, and how he kind of has to do lip service for all the apologists and Christians who are subscribed to his channel. He's just doing lip service for them. But I applaud you for teaching him a lesson.
Have you checked out the channel, JMD countering scumbags who try and make a quick buck and defend all lies and untruth for money and nothing basically at all?
Can you say that again real quick?
I'll just give you the website. Atheism through logic, reason, facts, science, statistics, history, reason, science, logic, facts, something bs.edu. That doesn't sound like the amount of characters that I said.
But what are you doing? Are you punking me? We have a reputation to uphold. What is this? There's nothing here.
Yes, we have a cohesion together of mocking the stupid with their religio-tard arguments.
The stupid deserve to be mocked. It's not really our fault.
Argument from unmoved mover. Argument from teleology. Whatever that means. Well, oh, sorry. What'd you say, Stallman? Or atheist dude? I don't know.
Somebody commented and said presuppositional atheism. You know God doesn't exist, but you just suppress knowledge. Sounds a bit like
You just suppress logic, facts, reason, and truth. Sounds like your average holy book.
Yeah. See, though that's a legit claim for you and I, though, because see, when the apologists, when the young Earth creationism weird idiots, when they get on their train of presuppositionalism, it's fallacious because what they're saying we're suppressing is some kind of magic sky fairy voice in our heads that we're suppressing. But it's legit for us because they're suppressing science and knowledge. Sure.
Even though there's no coherent definition of God, let me give you the correct definition. An anthropomorphic man who can use magic. Aaron Ra, my hero.
Yup. Yeah. Speaking of magic, no, he likes to do that in his free time.
I'll show you some magic.
Show me.
How did that book fly in the air?
I don't know. Oh, you want to see some magic? I can show you some magic.
Show me some magic. I'm afraid now. Okay, I may be done with the atheo person.
I can't reach it.
Is that a futon?
That is a bed. Just a really cheap bed.
Okay. Looks like oh, you moved. Did you finish moving?
Yep. This is my new room. I like it. Okay, I'm about to show you some magic right here.
Brought to you by theism.
Brought to you by theism. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Magic. You idiots, how can you believe that? You really believe that instead of science? The Big Bang is a proven fact. Okay, so in the beginning, God did it. Anti-science, we are.
Well, it's if you want to say God created all things, then you have to answer the clearly hard, difficult question that no one can answer from their side of theism. Who created God? It's common sense.
Chapter 3. Now the serpent was more crafty than any of the wild animals the Lord God had made.
The serpent was right.
He said to the woman, did God really say... Hold on. The serpent said...
Well, yeah, no, that's presupposing the magic already, so...
Magic. The serpent said... This book is hilarious. I know a lot of atheists hate it. I love it. I think these are the kind of fairy tales that just give me a chuckle when I need one. Hey,
well,
I got it.
I think that your worldview is magic because you somehow believe that everything came from nothing, led to somehow matter and so on. Because, when there's no time, space, or matter, somehow matter, time, and space comes from no space, time, or matter, but yet for some reason it can't come from God, who's an immaterial substance of mind. But besides that somehow gave rise to all the planets and stars, and then gave rise to some cellular creature, and then gave rise to conscious moral agents that somehow give rise to, free will, and somehow give rise to the reliability of the New Testament and, all these other things. Sounds like magic to me.
I think this is quite adorable. However, I am not going to treat you with this. Here's the thing. I'll grant you the sake of you're young, you don't have a doctorate. I hear doctors and scientists making these accusations, and so they deserve ridicule and mockery because they don't have an excuse. I understand you just kind of believe what the authorities tell you. But this is what apologists do. It's based on a basic misunderstanding of physics. Okay, when we talk about the Big Bang, that's just the beginning of our space-time. It's perfectly reasonable to think that there's an eternal nature, that nature is eternal, but yes, our space-time continue had a beginning, but that doesn't mean
do you hold to T equals 0?
As far as our space-time, sure.
No, do you hold that at one point there was no time, T equals 0?
Maybe, but I wouldn't necessarily apply that to our universe. I think our universe.
I think you're just wrong about the science. I think T equals 0 is a scientific fact, Alexander Verlaken. And if that's the case, then How do you have space and matter without
I'm
time?
pretty sure you just made up an authority. I don't believe there is anybody named Alexander Verlaken. So, pretty sure
Probably
you just
because
made that up.
probably because we both mispronounced his last name. So you're probably right on that.
Or you're just making up authorities, which apologists love to do. Because
What's your authority as an
if you
atheist?
think, hold on, the entire scientific community. So thanks, good night. But I think it's
Which consists
adorable that you think I should take any of your authority seriously when this is your ultimate authority. So. Boom.
Well, I got the first verse right, that the universe had a beginning. Big Bang Theory.
Nope, because it says, read it carefully, Nimrod. It says, in the beginning.
I'm a great hunter. Thank you, I am.
Read it correctly. It says, in the beginning. Okay, so there's the beginning. God created the heavens and the earth. So God doesn't create the heavens and the earth until after the beginning. So it already gets the basic science wrong.
So in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. What do you think in the beginning it means?
Well, for you it probably means 6,000 years ago, which is laughable. But
no, that's a straw man. No, if I say in the beginning of my life I was born, is that not the same event just being spoken of in a different way?
So you think you were born at the beginning of the universe?
Yes, that's exactly what I meant.
Okay. Not surprising, considering you also believe that people just naturally pop up from the dead sometimes. But
yes, because naturally is how it goes.
Yep. I'm glad to hear from the horse's mouth, or should I say the talking donkey's mouth?
the jackass's mouth.
I can't believe you just.
No, I legit give a name of an animal. Is that atheist saying you were surprised I cursed? Well, I think cursing is more than just that, but that's a
just I honestly don't care if you curse on my channel. It's just the hypocrisy is kind of comical to me.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, I already have. I don't have tattoos. I won't get any.
Just so you know, I spend a fair bit of time, since we're cursing now, on the internet, and you want to see a really fine ass? That right there, that's a fine ass.
These are like becoming cringy even for me now.
All right, everybody can see my receding hairline now.
Hello, receding hairline here. That should be your intro.
What?
Hello, receding hairline here. That's someone else's intro. I'm not gonna mention who.
Oh, okay.
If someone knows what I was quoting, I'll be highly impressed. Actually, I won't be because it's some sort of popular channel. But anyway, I'm going to pray to Raptor Jesus that you know what Raptor Jesus is?
No.
That's a scholar fiction thing. I'm going to pray to the flying spaghetti monster that he reveals the truth to you from you suppressing the truth and unrighteousness. Alexander the Great, 124. Or no, Persians 124, not Romans 124. Okay. It's too late for me to do this right now.
Fair enough.
My brain just runs out of stupid things to say.
Yeah. No, in all seriousness, when I do the official character, I'll be more cruel.
Well, that's just. I need to make this clear. I'm not. My stereotypical atheist is not all atheist. I'm just more acting like the T.J. Kurtz and Jacqueline Glenn followers who literally use the same arguments they do. And if you think I strawman them, well, I intentionally just strawman on purpose sometimes just for satirical sake. But when I'm actually serious with their arguments, I don't think I'm strawmanning them. And if you think I am, then please show me how I am.
Yeah. Well, then when we do it in the future, we'll do that. We'll have you actually like steelman the arguments and same, vice versa. I'll do that.
Yeah, practice the principle of charity.
Yeah, we should try to set that up before September. Just so, because that'll give me a practice run before I do it with Greg Kogel.
Well, you should have me on. We should just tag team him like we talked about before.
That would be rude. I have a very specific setup. We should do it to Michael Jones.
Oh yeah. If you have him on, just send me the link and we'll just surprise him.
Yeah, I'll get the Atheist hat too.
Well, no, it'll just be funny because he'll come into a hangout and I'll just pop in like 5 minutes later into the video and be like, "I came back to back up my boy. We're going to take inspiring stupidity down."
Yeah, inspiring stupidity. That's great. Well, that's actually. Hopefully, he doesn't watch this because I'm going to tell you exactly what we're going to do now.
Tell me after.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough.
I honestly thought I still had my fedora on.
Fair enough. So how should we wrap this up? It is getting late, and I do have church tomorrow.
However you want to. It's your channel.
I'm not good with trick questions like that.
Well, you're a theist. Of course you're not.
You're not wearing the fedora anymore. Stop. Okay, so, well, here, let's wrap it up this way. On the off chance that anybody who's here isn't already familiar with you, go subscribe to JMDApologetics101. I think that's the best thing. And what would you like to leave the viewers with? Uninspiring philosophy.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, if you want to subscribe, you can. But I think all of your new subscribers are probably me and inspiring philosophies, or uninspiring philosophies. If you want to support the channel, not the satirical stuff, the more serious stuff I do, like the 1st and 2nd Peter live stream I did tonight, like where I take stuff seriously, then you can support the channel through Patreon or Stripe or PayPal or Super Chats. So.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, and Christian truth needs to be spread through apologetics. Like
Absolutely.
I said,
I second that.
And atheism is spread reason, truth, and logic.
All right. On that note, John Dunphy, thank you for being. What just happened?
What just happened?
Oh, I don't know. It looked like there was an explosion. Anyway, thank you for being here, sir. We will do it again. And God bless everybody.
Hopefully we don't blow up.